take us from the 9 years ago up to 2020, up to
Okay.
the doorstep of this crazy year we call 2020.
Yes, I was pediatric emergency doctor, loving it, working night shifts. And then I ended up getting sick in 2013 with atrial fibrillation. So it's like a diagnosis you get when you're in your 70s, but some kind of way I got it at 30 something, and I was in my really good health. And so I had to gradually figure out that I couldn't do nights and holidays and weekends and, those crazy hours in the ER.
So it's something you can't really cure. You have to just manage. Is that?
No, you can. I ended up having 3 procedures for it. I tried medicine. It didn't work. And then I had 3 procedures for it. And now I'm good.
Okay.
But in the process, I just had an eye-opening kind of, session with myself and with some therapists, and figured out that maybe working myself that much wasn't great for my heart and for my lifelong health.
Hey everyone, this is the Workplace Therapist Show. Of course, I'm your host, Brandon Smith. The entire purpose of this show is one singular thing, and that is to help you have healthier conversations and healthier relationships at work. Today's show is a slight deviation from our normal traditional topics within that space. 2020 has been a hard year for really all of us, and so it hit us a few months ago that we need to start spotlighting some of those people that have had major positive transformations in 2020. And so today I'm really excited to have been able to interview Dr. Shayna Smith. Shayna is a pediatrician by training. She's done both pediatrics as well as emergency pediatrics. And she made this decision, the difficult decision, but the powerful decision, to leave the practice she was a part of and start her own practice in the middle of a pandemic. So listen to my interview with Shayna, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. So I'm really excited about our conversation today. So this is one of our 2020 transformation shows. So to have us on the show to talk about this today, Shayna, Dr. Shayna Smith. So we were talking about kind of your title, and you said basically board certified everything kids.
Yes, I'm
so
board
pediatric, emergency,
and then I got a board certification in lifestyle medicine too recently.
Really?
Yes.
For kids or for?
It's just overall, just trying to prevent acute and chronic diseases through lifestyle changes and behavioral changes.
Wow.
I know. I did that couple years ago.
Very cool.
Yes.
So, for our show today, we're going to talk about 2020, and we're going to talk about the pivot that you've been making in 2020, which is so very cool. But before we do that, let's go back in time a little bit. So share a little bit about your journey before 2020. Like what got you being a doctor in the first place? What was kind of that, what was your story that ultimately kind of got you moving that way? And then we can talk about how 2020 has been kind of a pivot point for you.
Okay. Well, I grew up in Arkansas in a small town named Pine Bluff. And my mom was a registered nurse and my dad was an OBGYN.
Okay.
So
how big is Pine Bluff?
It was probably about 60,000 population around then.
Wow.
So that's pretty small, compared to other cities in the area. I mean, in other areas. So I grew up there and I watched my parents run. My dad, he ran his solo practice as an OBGYN, and he would run back and forth to the hospital. So I was like, I'm never going to do that. Right. And then
this is what we call foreshadowing.
Yes,
folks.
And at 14, he said, maybe you can volunteer as a candy striper. So back then, they called the volunteers candy stripers.
Yeah.
So I went and they put me on the pediatric ward. So as soon as I got on the pediatric ward and saw the kids, I just have a natural love for kids. I said, I'm doing this. And that's kind of how I got my interest in becoming a doctor.
Yeah.
And so I just kept that going. And ended up going to college at Xavier University in New Orleans.
Yep.
It's just a really good school for if you're pre-medical and want to go to medical school. So I went there and they had like a pathway to get me where I wanted to be. And so after I graduated from Xavier, then I went back home to University of Arkansas Medical Science College of Medicine. So what happened was when I was at Xavier, my mom passed from breast cancer. So when I was a junior in high school, she showed me how to do a self-breast exam because she's a nurse. She was a nurse, so she showed me how to do one, and I actually found her lump.
Wow.
Yes, I saw when she lifted it up that she had some kind of abnormality on her skin, and so it was diagnosed like right after that.
Wow.
Yes. So it kind of like sparked, kept sparking my interest in medicine. Then I went to Xavier and she passed my junior year. But I ended up going on and taking the MCAT anyway. That's the medical college admissions test that you take. I took it the semester after she passed. And took it and ended up deciding to go back to Arkansas because I had a little sister and brother that were 7 and 9, about 7 and 9 when she died.
Yeah.
So I decided to go back to Arkansas to be close to home. So I get in medical school, and my dad passed the first semester of medical school.
Wow. That must have been sudden.
It was sudden. He died from a heart attack. My mom died from breast cancer metastasis, and then my dad died from a heart attack 2 years later.
How old was Dad when he passed?
He was 56. My mom was 44.
Wow.
And so I ended up, with my family raising my little brother and sister.
While you're going to medical school?
They were 9 and 11.
Oh, wow.
I know. I didn't even tell you.
That must have been really hard.
It was hard, but I just kind of had to do what I had to do.
Yeah.
And so I just kept going. So kept going through medical school. Didn't know. I thought I wanted to be, at some time, a neonatologist. I thought I wanted to be a sports medicine doctor, all the fun stuff. And then I decided just on pediatrics because I've always had a love for kids. I feel like they're innocent until the world kind of screws them over. And they want to be well. Adults mess their bodies up and then want us to fix them. But kids kind of they want to be well. They're like, can I go back to soccer? You're like, no, you have a concussion. Sit down. So I decided to do pediatrics and ended up going to Children's Mercy Hospital in Kansas City to do a pediatrics residency and fell in love with pediatric emergency medicine and did 3 more years of pediatric emergency medicine fellowship after that.
Wow.
So I came to Atlanta about 9 years ago to do pediatric emergency medicine at Scottish Rite. So that's how I got to Atlanta. And then everything started moving around from there.
Okay, so then we get to Atlanta 9 years ago.
We get to Atlanta.
And then take us from the 9 years ago up to 2020, up to the doorstep of this crazy year we call 2020.
Yes, I was pediatric emergency doctor, loving it, working night shifts. And then I ended up getting sick in 2013 with atrial fibrillation. So it's like a diagnosis you get when you're in your 70s, but some kind of way I got it at 30-something, and I was in my really good health. And so I had to gradually figure out that I couldn't do nights and holidays and weekends and, those crazy hours in the ER.
So it's something you can't really cure. You have to just manage? Is that?
No, you can. I ended up having 3 procedures for it. I tried medicine. It didn't work. And then I had 3 procedures for it. And now I'm good.
Okay.
But in the process, I just had an eye-opening kind of, session with myself and with some therapists and figured out that maybe working myself that much wasn't great for my heart and for my lifelong health.
That's intense. The emergency room work with the hours and
I loved it.
And just the intensity
those hours killed me because I wouldn't sleep when I got off work. I was one of those people that got off work but did things and never slept. And so at that point I said, maybe I'll just do primary care pediatrics because I had a board certification in it. So about 3 years ago, I decided to go work at a local pediatric office, right by the perimeter, and just do that and work in the ER 3-4 times a month to keep up my skills. And that's what I've been doing until now.
Okay. So now, we've got to the doorstep of 2020. Okay. All right. And so then 2020
hit.
So let's talk about, first of all, how did 2020 by itself, just the craziness of 2020 affect you and your world? And then let's talk a little bit about kind of what were those things that made you decide you wanted to pivot.
Okay. I was kind of thinking about it before because the way I practice medicine, I'm a little different. I do regular Western medicine, regular pediatrics, but I also take a kind of quality approach. I want to spend time with my patients, get to know them. The lifestyle medicine part of it is treating some behaviors such as stress, sleep, management, food intake. And so in those visits that I was doing originally, pre-2020, you have to go fast. You know what I'm saying? And so I wasn't doing as much of the lifestyle medicine part, or even taking as much time as I really wanted to take with the families to get to know them.
So on a let's say a full day, how many patients would you see?
I could see at that time about 30-ish, in the 30th range, and that was well checks and sick visits.
Yeah.
Some of the other providers at the practice could see more than that. But I felt like I was in the room with one hand on the door and one foot in. And I felt like it was only fair to the patients that I spent the time that I needed to spend when you come once a year or when you have a problem. So that made me kind of think, maybe I need to figure out a way to be happy and do medicine the way I want to do it. So 2020 hit, and it made it even more so, in my brain that I needed to do it, because it was like, okay, if any time is now, which makes no sense to a lot of people, because they're like, but it's a pandemic. Why are you doing this? But it's just, life is short, and I can't see myself doing things the way that they were. And I want to do my dream and go after what I want to go after. So I decided to start my own practice.
Okay, so you did that, and what month did you do that in 2020?
Well, it's happening. It's opening up in 2021.
Okay.
In January. It's called Flourish Pediatrics, like to thrive, to flourish.
Love that. It's
all about having a favorable environment so you can thrive and grow. And it's just a small pediatric office just with me right now. And I'm going to have interactive programs and classes for moms and dads, some of the kids on puberty, Zoom cooking classes, things like that, in addition to the regular pediatric well visits and vaccinations. It's just, I want to get to know my patients and have a relationship with them. So that's my goal.
So I think it's interesting when we talk about transformation and pivoting, because not everybody would have done that.
No.
Right? So,
it's harder than it seems.
Because some people just say, "Oh my gosh, but it's so hard this year," and I just have to hunker down and just kind of take it, right? But something in you switched. That switch flipped, and you said, I don't want to do this anymore.
I mean, if you think about the ages that my parents were, when my mom was 38 when she got sick and 44 when she passed, and I'm 41, so it just makes you think, okay, life is short. And I look back on her life and say, well, maybe it was some things that she wanted to do that she didn't, because she told me about a lot of dreams that she had. Yes, she was an RN, but she was thinking about being a nurse anesthetist, and she was just very creative. And I saw so much in her, and I feel like her life was cut short. And so that's kind of in my heart too. Well, I don't know how long I'm going to be here. I may as well do something that I enjoy and go after it. So that's what I'm doing.
Yeah. So that kind of gave you that, not only that sense of purpose, but that courage.
Yes.
To take that leap.
Also, my friends have been just very supportive, and other physicians in the community have been very supportive. And it's a lot of doctors that have like solo practices that have talked to me about how I can do it, and how owning your own is going to be the best thing that ever happened. A lot of work, but the best thing that's ever happened to you. So I'm kind of looking forward to like flipping it at 41.
So what were some of the things that you realized you had to do when you made this decision? I mean, it's probably like a lot of like not very exciting things, but important things. Like you got to find a space.
Yes.
You got to think about what's the name going to be.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, all that other kind of stuff.
I know. It's like I focused on the name for a while, right? So so when I started looking up lifestyle medicine, what happened is after I got diagnosed with the atrial fib, I decided it's other things that I can do other than the medications that they're giving me, and other than the surgeries that I can probably do to take care of my body and live longer. So that got me into, this plant-based diet. I don't know if you know about that about me. So my family and we kind of follow a mainly plant-based diet. And so I changed my diet, and then I met a lot of doctors that also believe that food is medicine, and exercise is medicine, and sleep is medicine, and all those things are medicine. So I kind of made the switch based on meeting a lot of those kind of doctors that also had private practices, taking care of patients like they normally would, but implementing those kind of values in their practice. So that's kind of what gave me the confidence. I saw other doctors doing it a different way, but still doing it a good way that was efficient. And so that give me a boost of encouragement that I could do it.
So I only know enough to be dangerous, but it seems like, particularly in the world of having your own private practice, it's not as common as it used to be. And it seems like more and more, it's like they're getting acquired by bigger healthcare systems and getting gobbled up. And it's almost harder to be kind of a solo physician.
I know.
So what is,
I'm crazy.
No, I'm not saying you're crazy. I'm so excited that you're doing it, because I think that's it allows you to create those relationships and to create the kind of medicine you want to give to the world, rather than being part of a large government, which is what happens when you get acquired by these larger healthcare systems. You become a government employee. I mean, I'm not trying to be mean, but that's just what happens. So what was it, even in that dynamic, that you noticed that physicians that are doing this and doing it well, what do they do that makes them able to do it? The ones that have their own practices.
They all told me that it's a lot of work. Okay, but they're able to set the rules and set the boundaries, their boundaries for their patients and for themselves ahead of time. So when you decided to be a patient there, most of them say that they have either a contract at that time, a talk at that time, an orientation at that time that lets people know what the boundaries will be of the practice or how the practice will run. So it gives them that kind of leeway where you can't have boundaries. You know, sometimes at the other practices, you just have to do whatever they tell you have to do. You have to see however many they want you to see. You're not in control of your schedule. You have to produce, a certain amount of RVUs or a certain amount, to stay within the range that they want you in. And so in private practice, they're telling me that you can set your own schedule. You can set your own boundaries. You can say yes to things, but you can also say no to things. So that was what looked alluring to me. Yeah. I think it is going to be a challenge, but I can't wait for the challenge. My dad was a solo practitioner. It was kind of strange. He was on one side of the building, and my uncle was a dentist, and my uncle was on the other side of the building. So they own this building together. You go to the dentist or the OBGYN. It's kind of strange. But
kind of worked.
But they're brothers, and that's how it worked.
I wonder if they ever had any patients that
they go to both.
They went to both on the same day. They were like, "I'll just hit them both on the same day."
I know they had the same patients though, but I don't know if it was on the same day. So the crazy thing about all of this is I watched that with terror. I watched my parents, doing billing at night, working with insurance companies, my dad being tired. That's why I decided not to be an OB. I can't get up in the middle of the night and run deliveries. But I saw all that, and then I still end up doing it years later. It's crazy.
Well, there was something about it. But I think part of what this inspired you to do, 2020, was that you appreciated really bringing to the world what you wanted to bring, and that freedom.
Yes.
The freedom to do that. And freedom, my belief, freedom and responsibility are siblings.
Yes.
They're kind of tied to the hip. And so if you want more freedom, you got to take more responsibility.
Yes.
Which is billings and figuring out office space and setting
everything.
boundaries with patients and all that, right? All that stuff. Or you could choose less responsibility, but then you get less freedom. And someone else, you walk in, someone else has already scheduled you, and you're seeing 35 or 40 patients that day.
And you just have to suck it up and do it.
And you said that's not how you wanted to live. And
that's not how I want to live.
Who you want to be. Okay, so I have a few last questions. So let's look into our crystal ball.
Okay.
What do you want to see in 2021 for your practice?
Oh, so excited.
What would success look like in 2021 for you?
Okay, I would have a good amount of patients, but not too many, a good amount that I actually know them, right?
Yep.
I would have a thriving event schedule with them, with puberty classes, healthy eating classes, mom support groups, those kind of things. And I really want to see a change in some of my patients. So I had a lot of patients at the other practice that were high risk for metabolic syndrome, diabetes, other things. And that may be a side program that I'm going to do to work with those kids specifically to try to help them not have chronic diseases earlier than they should in life. And that's what I've been doing all summer long. I've had like a little beta group that I've been working with. We've been to the Beltline doing vision boards. We've been doing Zoom cooking classes, and I just interact with them. And I feel like I'm old, but they don't. So they love when I interact with them. We did a container garden class. And so just keeping that engagement and interacting with kids at a certain age, they're between 8 and 13 right now, is kind of trying to motivate them to teach them healthy habits from then on. I couldn't do that in the other population because, like you said, I had to kind of go.
Yeah.
But this has given me some leeway to do some other things that will fulfill me and make me happy too.
Yeah, that's really, really exciting.
Yes.
Okay, so here's my last question.
Okay.
For people listening to this right now that are like, I think I want to change. I'm not sure.
Yes.
Like what pieces of advice would you give someone who's on the edge? They can't decide.
You don't know that you're going to fail until you fail. That was a big one. I had a fear of failing. I thought about it for years, and I just had this fear like, but what if? And then COVID happened. There's a lot of what ifs going on right now. So I said, life is short. The only way I'm going to find out if I make it is if I try to make it. So the step one is just actually going for it. And then the biggest thing that I learned this year was ask for help. So I was a person that I'll just do it, and I still do that a lot. I have to catch myself. If somebody doesn't do something, I'll just figure it out. But this year I actually called a lot of doctors, called a lot of people that I knew that were supportive or that had done it before, and asked them questions. And they actually have helped me figure out and streamline the process where I feel like it's doable now. So jumping out there, doing it, and asking for help are one of the two main things that I have to do. And then being okay when things don't work out. So some days I have a long to-do list. Like today, I had a pretty long one. I started it at 4 a.m.
Wow.
From 4 to 9. I'm crazy. I wake up early. And I did a lot of things on the to-do list, but at the
4 to
end,
9, that's like almost like some for some people, that's like their day.
I know.
That's 5 hours.
Right? I still got stuff to do.
You already did a day.
It's a solo practice, right?
Yeah.
But you know what? Tonight, I have to be okay if 2 things on that list is not done. And so that's been the craziest thing for somebody that's driven like me, but 2 things aren't done, on that list. And so I'm trying to learn how to be okay with that. Put it down, watch a TV show, spend time with my son and my husband, and then go from there. That's a lesson I'm still working on.
I get it. I totally do.
Yeah.
I totally get it. But it's kind of a combination of, they often talk with entrepreneurs and startups.
Yes.
They have a fail fast mentality.
Yes.
Right? I'm gonna make a mistake quick, but learn and overcome it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also that, and also giving yourself grace and taking time to rest and all the stuff that it's important to you and important to your patients that you give to them.
Yep.
Yeah, that's great. So, okay. So if people want to learn more about you and more about your practice, where is there any place they can go yet to learn about it?
Yes. So I am actually on Instagram under Plant-Based Kids MD. Remember I told you I'm plant-based?
Yeah.
So I post a lot of like plant-based meals and places I go in Atlanta and just things that we're doing at the house to be healthier. And then the name of the office is Flourish Pediatrics. So I actually have a website. It's a landing page right now. It's www.flourish, like FLOURISH, peds.com. And people are putting in their information now. And so I'm going to give them updates as we keep building it up. And it's coming soon. It's going so fast.
I'm so excited.
I'm
so excited for you, and
too.
so excited that you took 2020 to be this moment of change for you to write the next chapter. I think so many times we sit back and people are waiting for the chapter to be written.
Yes.
And you said, "Nuh-uh.
I'm going to do it.
I'm going to write the next one."
I'm going to do it.
Yeah, awesome.
Yes.
Shayna, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Wasn't that a great interview with Shayna? I mean, I really enjoyed not only hearing her life journey and some of the challenges that she encountered in life, but also how she went through and made some of the big important decisions this year. 2 things really stuck out for me as she made those pivots. The first was that realization that you never know how much time you're going to have in life. And her story very much mirrored that. And she made that decision to say, if my time on this earth could potentially be short, how do I want to live it? Who do I really want to be? And what's the kind of work that's going to give me passion? And then she also came to that decision to recognize and give herself grace when things don't always go the way that she might want them to. Those two things really stood out for me, and I would hope for you that it inspired you to do some of the same things. So here is to not only a great finish to 2020, but more importantly, a fantastic beginning and great year in 2021. So continue the fight, keep up the great work. Of course, rate and review our show if you haven't already. That's how folks find us and learn about us, and we kind of grow our tribe. And so until our next show, have a great week and an awesome life.